You know, I just thought of the biggest problem is that we're filming this in HD and you're watching it in HD or less probably on YouTube, which sucks because it's all like 8K stuff. We can't show it. You can only see what you're seeing it in. You gotta come here. You gotta experience it for yourself, man. You don't know what 8K truly is. Okay, so I'm sure some of you might be a little bit confused with what exactly is going on right now. So if you're familiar with me, or even if you're not, typically my videos deal with woodworking and design, building furniture, mostly modern kind of stuff. So when Samsung approached me with an opportunity to come out to CES and make a video, initially I was a little hesitant. I was worried that the video would just be a little bit too different from the normal stuff on my channel, but it sounded fun. I'm into technology. I've always wanted to go to CES, so how could I pass up an opportunity like this? And I'm sure that most of you are into tech too. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that a Venn diagram between people into woodworking and people into technology might look something like this. Plus, my main goal is going to be to try to show the relationship between technology and furniture and just kind of how they coexist. So all that is to say, I know that this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal video, but I think it's also going to be a lot of fun, so let's get into it. So like I kind of mentioned there in the intro, I had never been to CES before. I did kind of have an idea of what to expect. That's some Back to the Future stuff.
But I don't think the full scale of it really dawned on me until I got here. That said, it's so crowded, it's hard to get any real up close and personal time with anything, and that's why it was so awesome that Samsung was able to grant us ample time in their first look space, both before and during the event. While we were there, we got to experience all of the latest and greatest TV and TV-related technologies. Things like the wall, which is made up of modular micro LED panels that can span up to 292 inches.
Take this off. This comes just off just like that.
There you go, you got a Tetris-shaped TV.
Yep.
What you've always wanted.
The QLED 8K TVs that provide some of the most impressive visual and audio output that I've ever experienced. And the Serif, which they bill as a TV designed for the mobile generation. Probably due to the fact that it can automatically rotate 90 degrees, making it perfect for sharing your phone's content with a group. And actually, the Serif is what takes me to my main takeaway that I had from the show. And that's the idea of what Samsung was calling lifestyle TV. Basically, I thought of it like this. In the TV space, it seems like most of the attention gets paid to a TV's technical specifications and prowess. And that's great. Samsung is paying attention to those things too, and they're right there at the tip of the spear.
Definitely feels like you're wearing headphones or there's speakers all over the place, but they're not. They're all right there around and behind the TV.
Exactly.
But what impressed me is that Samsung is paying attention to more than those things and really catering to the more design-centric among us. And considering how a TV should live inside of our homes, not only from a functionality point of view, but also from an aesthetic point of view. In other words, as a piece of furniture or decor. And the two products that exemplified that mindset the most to me were the frame and the Serif. So here's why. So the frame, much like the name would imply, looks essentially like a picture frame. I think their tagline is even something like a TV when it's on, art when it's off. And that sums it up pretty nicely. Although I guess technically it might be a TV when it's on, art when it's in art mode. That's not as catchy though, so I think they made the right call. But art mode is essentially when you select for the TV to display paintings.
So it's kind of curated towards different themes or whatever. And then these are all real pieces of art. Yes. It's not like they were made for this. These are just things that artists made that you guys have to display. Are we allowed to pop the thing off of this one?
Now, it turns out we weren't allowed to on the floor model, but they're magnetically attached, and from the looks of it, they just kind of wrap around the front outside edge and hook over the back. And they come in a few different finishes, which could potentially expand down the line.
As a woodworker, I know about miters. These are tight miters.
But anyway, getting back into why the frame looks so convincing and why it goes beyond a fancy bezel, a relatively flat back to get it closer to the wall and calling it a day. Some of the key features are the screen and how it utilizes a backlighting technology called dual LED, which optimizes the backlight tone according to the image being displayed. See right there, those orange and blue dots? Warm and cool, instead of just cool. And thanks to that, the screen displays more truthful colors and bolder contrast.
A lot more of the R.
Correct.
No R, big R.
Also, by monitoring ambient light, the frame balances the screen's brightness and color tone for more natural illumination. So basically, if you have it displayed next to or among other artwork, and your room is more dimly lit, you're not going to end up with one quote-unquote painting that sticks out like a sore thumb. And all of that adds up to an experience more similar to what you might get when you're just looking at a painting. So after checking it out for a while, looking at all the frame options and sizes, etc., it got my mind racing about how I'd design a piece of furniture and a room around the frame. Now, normally when I design a console for a TV, it's a normal TV. And you can absolutely use the frame as a normal TV, but for my money, that kind of defeats the purpose. So obviously, I'm going to want to hang it on the wall, and I'm going to want to surround it with some other traditional pieces of art. Now, I think if I were to put some of the TV consoles that I've designed in the past below it, it could work, but to me this still evokes the idea of a TV, which again could be fine, but that's not what I'm going for. So instead, I'd want to design a more minimalistic, non-TV console looking piece to sit below it. And this could have a ton of storage functionality and could even house any components that I might want to use. And I'm sure you're thinking, that's great and all, but what about all the HDMI cords, the power cord? Well, Samsung's thought of that, and they offer what's called a One Connect box and invisible connection, which takes care of all that. Next, I would change the positioning of the frame to be a little bit higher than where I might want a TV, closer to what would be a typical height for wall art. As for the furniture to go around it, I'm going to bring in a couch, one of my coffee tables, a couple lounge chairs, and maybe a pair of those bookshelves that I built for the Dwell video, to get a sort of sitting room library vibe going. Over on this wall, I'm going to hang another painting, or a framed TV, I guess, if you really wanted. And we'll put a hall table under that, and bring in a couple other pieces to finish off the look. Okay, now I think that this is working pretty well, but it still looks a little bit like a TV, just because the attention seems to be naturally focused towards the frame. So if I wanted to disguise it even further, maybe we could rotate the setup. Now, obviously all of this would depend upon the layout of the house, but let's say maybe there's a fireplace or some other focal point over here. Now maybe we lose one of the bookshelves, slide the frames and the console down closer to the wall, and rotate the lounge chairs to be across from the couch. Now to me, this looks even more inconspicuous. So obviously there's no right way to do it, but this is just something that jumped out to me as an idea that I could see implementing. You know, someday when I have a bigger house. We'll get there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because, most of the time you just see people going bigger and bigger, but to do something smaller, I think it makes a lot of sense for a product like this because, it might not be where your main place to watch TV is. It could be in a kitchen or somewhere else where, you want it disguised when you're not using it, but then, you want to pop it on to follow along to a recipe or whatever. Maybe make some beets and other red vegetables and fruits. You got a stew going, baby.
Arguably, but in my opinion, the most eye-catching TV that I saw on display during the show was the Serif.
No. Kind of ruining it back there too, but...
And that's almost entirely because of its design. When I first saw it, it made me think about TVs from the 50s and 60s, or even before that. Back when it was essentially a small screen inside of a large piece of furniture. And then how things evolved through the years to the point where TVs were bigger boxes inside of really large dedicated pieces of furniture, like an entertainment center. And then all the way up to about 15 years ago, when flat panel TVs really began to become prevalent. And how from that time forward, they've essentially just gotten bigger, flatter, and thinner. And then to now, kind of circling back around, when here we are with a TV that's essentially a piece of furniture. Unlike some of those older examples, however, one of the things that comes to mind when looking at the Serif is this thing is actually relatively mobile for a TV. Here's what I mean. If you take just about any other TV and set it on the ground, it kind of looks like you just moved into your first apartment and you haven't purchased any furniture yet. But the Serif sitting on the ground looks pretty natural. So you actually could move it around to different rooms for different purposes, a party or what have you, or just reconfigure it within a room with relative ease. And it always just kind of looks good and purposeful. Or you could put it on a piece of furniture like a normal TV, or even this metal floor stand that's specifically made for it. Something else that caught my attention about the Serif was the eco package that it comes in, and how it can be repurposed into different objects. Honestly, it just kind of looked fun to play with. Unfortunately, they didn't have any extra at the show, but I talked them into sending some to my workshop. So as soon as it gets here, I'm gonna mess around with it and see if I can put something together. So be on the lookout for that.
Hey, real quick, sorry to interrupt. They sent some. See? Okay, so my initial idea was to build something crazy, like a TV console or something. I wasn't sure, but whatever it was, I wanted to do something original. But then I thought, you know what, it might be kind of crazy to start with that, and they have instructions for projects on their site, so I decided to start with one of those instead. So I scanned the QR code, read over the instructions, and got to work. The first step was to draw out the shapes that I need to make. And this is basically just a simple game of connect the dots. After that, it's just a matter of cutting everything out. Now, this isn't insanely simple, but I definitely think it's something that anybody could do. All you really need is a box cutter and something with a straight edge. I'd say the whole thing took me about 3 hours to complete, but that includes filming, so without that, it might have been closer to 2 hours. And I definitely got better as I went along, especially when it comes to making cuts that stop partway through a panel, like these. And I found that the best way to make these was to start where you want the cut to end. So sometimes that means approaching a cut from both ends and meeting in the middle. And if needed, tip the blade really vertically to finish off the cut. Finally, with everything cut out, it was just a matter of assembling. Okay, so the cool thing about putting this little storage box together was that it taught me the two sort of joinery methods that they seem to use for these projects. And those are, one, these little hook half-lap sort of joints, and those seem to be for pieces that need to hold themselves together, and two, these basically mortise and tenon shapes, where gravity and friction are enough to get the job done. So with that knowledge, I headed into SketchUp to start designing something of my own, and here's what I came up with. Random shapes. Pretty cool, right? Okay, but actually what this is a sort of TV console / bookshelf idea. And here it is assembled. So you can see here, I've used the same joinery methods as the example projects. And I'm sure that there are some problems with my drawing, namely it's likely too big to come from a single package, but come on, I'm a rookie here. Cut me some slack. Oh yeah, and these holes, you're probably thinking that's a mess up, but I like to think of them as a place to run HDMI or power cables. As for how it could be used, I picture two of them side by side with a TV above them and some components inside. Or even stacked on top of one another like a bookshelf. Okay, let's cut back to the CES video.
Love someone.
I didn't get any of that.
To love.
Exactly. So you missed out on part of the very important storyline, right?
Did you go to his room after you went to see Mrs. Herbert?
Once, yesterday,
What for?
to confirm it myself.
So, were you right about your feeling?
I haven't seen Jacob since. To love someone, you have to love your.
Now I know she did it. Guilty.
All right. Well, lastly, I just want to thank Samsung again for inviting me out to CES. I had a great time. And I know that this video was very different, but I had a lot of fun putting it together and hopefully you enjoyed watching it. All right, well, I'll see you in the next one.
Looks like we've got a TV, lamp, TV. 8 Ks. That's 4 more Ks than mine has. Might be 6 more Ks than yours has, depending on how many Ks you got. I've often said, what's lacking in the TV industry, people are focusing on, bezel-less and 8K this, 8K that, better speakers, and that's all awesome. I mean, those are great things, but not enough elephants. Samsung's doing it right.
This is the
These are beautiful. Yeah, it's like a piece of furniture that's a TV. I like it. So you can broadcast your phone onto it?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Tappity tappity. This looks like an interesting video. Ooh, did you get that? That was cool. I like this guy. Like, can you see the seams? I can't even see them, and I'm standing 4 feet away from it. Something that's probably like a 95-inch, bigger than anybody would reasonably have in their house. I don't see any of the seams, so this is insane. I want this for an entire wall in my house.
Any last words?
Let's go get me crawling out of something.